she had 1,000 stories. And she would always ask us, because she read from the Bible every night, and we'd always ask for revelation. And I mean, we would sit there and just shudder because we didn't understand anything. But the very next night, Shirley would say, "What do you want me to read?" Revelation,
That's so cool,
So
though.
it was funny. It was funny. Sweet memory.
Yes.
Okay. And then so we came here, and that's what I did. And I did, after retired at 70, all of that, and I did sub for a while, and I got hurt, and my doctor said no more because I
Yeah.
have some arthritis, and she said no, Elsie. She even wrote a letter that, take her off the list.
Yeah.
So, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that, but some things just are not like they used to be, and I've
Yeah.
changed too, and I know I'm a lot frailer than I once was,
Yeah.
and in our immediate family, I have Sharon. There's exactly 25 years difference. So last year I celebrated my 75th, and she celebrated her 50th, and so we did take a trip
Good.
together for celebration for that, and she and Gary and their children moved up here right after Don died,
Yeah.
because she knew Sharon does have that sense,
Yeah.
and she just knew we'd need them. Gary, who was a mechanic after his service in the Marines, he in fact he became, that's what he did in the Marines. He was a mechanic to the helicopters, and
Okay.
so he had a business in Georgia, which he closed up. He had a business up here for a while, and then due to some government stuff, he was about to lose everything, so he closed it down,
Okay.
and worked then toward DC in managing various things
Okay.
and everything. And Sharon homeschooled her children. She had 2 children,
Right.
and we lived in the parsonage. And then, right, the year James knew he was dying, and he knew we needed a home, so we we he was bound and determined we were going to get a home.
Good.
And so we do. It's behind the high school there
Good.
that we are. And so we lived in 2 places together now for, it'll be 19 years this year since Don died.
Okay.
And we never had a crossword, all of that. We we stayed out of their business. They stayed out of ours, but then we come together as a family to
Okay.
discuss greater issues,
Okay.
And like the kids, first when they moved up, their daddy told them they couldn't do something. And so they came down to my little basement apartment thinking that
Oh,
Nana will
yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, listen, I have known and loved your mama longer than I've known and loved you. And I said, in fact, I've known and loved your daddy longer than I've known and
Yeah.
loved you. I said, so this won't work. I
Yeah.
said, even if I disagree with a decision your mom or dad make about you, you'll never know it. I
That's
said,
good
because
advice for a
I
grandparent.
am to be a nana,
Yeah.
and they are to be your parents.
Yes.
And they are to work it out with you.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm here to bring the joy. I said,
Oh,
you'll mind
that's
around me,
great.
but I'm here to bring the joy.
Yes.
And one thing I do that's just really, really special to me,
Yeah.
because prayer has become very near and dear to me,
It's so
is
important.
that, once a week, because it's the cheapest place and they know me now, and it's the closest place, I try at least once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. I go to across to get a little burger I get the same thing. Always have my drink with me. It's $2 and something. I know
Yeah.
exactly with my senior discount what it'll
Yeah.
be. And then I go over where the hotel is, and down at the end, if you park there, you have a beautiful vision of both the high school and the middle school.
Yeah.
And so I pray for them.
That's
Well, I
awesome.
mean, it's just developed. It just developed because I usually do it at a time I just need to get out and away, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I do. And then I will pray for them as a whole. I pray for God's hand be over both of
Yes.
those schools and
Yeah.
direct them, and those kids not get caught up with all the things that the devil is trying to put in their life, and
Yeah.
will make their home strong. And if the kids I still know, I pray for them specifically,
Yeah.
for that. And then after that, then I'll pray for just who God puts on my head. I don't have a
Yeah.
list like I
Yeah.
do at home, but just who God brings into my
That's
mind, and
great.
I'll pray for them, and that's become a really special time for me. But we always teased that we had a Neapolitan family,
Yeah.
because Don being from Indonesia and then Gary being black, and it just all it worked. It worked together. I just got a million stories of times, I mean, we were family in every
That's
sense of the
great.
word, put together by God,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I still grieve over those people, but I've learned ways to grieve, and I've
Yeah.
learned ways to put God at the center of that, and that's what I try to do in my grief group, is help them, yes, through the initial part, but then we do a lot of Bible study, and we just finished up a study on the women in the Bible and how they dealt with such hard times as grief
Yeah.
and all of that.
Wow.
And we are going to do a 2-week study, just sort of a refresher on some grief. And then we're going to do all the men of the Bible
That's
and how they
cool.
dealt with, you know,
Yes.
dealt with such tough times like losing somebody and
Yeah.
that kind of thing
Yeah.
and everything. So I just believe God's the answer to it all, no matter how we hurt. And I've lost some very key people, on my plate that I adored, starting, with my daddy way back when. And then, my mother, it was easier because of her age,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then James, we lived through that. He preached up until a month before he died.
That's awesome.
And at home, because of the effects of the disease and everything, he would make some of the funniest statements, and we just prayed that. But he never forgot a scripture he had memorized. He never. It just went smooth
Yeah.
till the day he said, "I need to stop this."
Yeah.
But even that month, because he knew I was moving to discipleship, he scoured the computer for things about ministering to families, ministering to this.
Yeah.
And he said, Elsie, I'll do research, because he loved to do research.
Yeah.
And that's not my favorite thing to do.
Right.
I
Right.
like the presentation, but
Yes.
I'll do the research. But he said, I'll do all this research for you that'll help you with classes and stuff. And I
Yeah.
said, okay. But after he died, I looked, and he had a notebook where he'd done all that research. And it was like when you learn to write, to cursive, be circles, or it
Yeah.
was just gibberish. I mean, I couldn't
Oh.
read anything.
Yeah.
But to him, it made
Made
perfect sense.
sense.
And
Yeah.
he was so excited. He'd tell me about some of the things he had found that day,
Yeah.
and everything. But yeah, that
That's so
gibberish is
cool.
very precious to me,
Yeah.
because he was trying to help me,
Yeah. And a few things really stick out in your story. Just the fact that, like, all the different places and ways that God has called you guys, from a worldly point of view, you could have taken finances or just like the comfortability and everything into consideration, but you guys seeked God every
we
single
really
step of the
tried.
way,
We
and
really
like,
tried.
and you saw the fruit of that too, and God's hand in that, and Him show up in so many ways and provide for you, like in and through it all. And then what you were saying about Him like feeling good when He was preaching. So I've just experienced it on a different level, but I shared that we did. We went to Southeast Asia, and we went there to share the gospel, to give them Bibles in their, in their heart language. And when I was there, like, of course, we were told not to only go to these certain restaurants, and we were told by missionaries who were there full time. But we were so hungry one night, and we were like, let's just go get something at a random place on our way home. That was a mistake. But anyways, I got so sick from that. But still, God gave me the strength to get up every morning and continue to serve Him while I was there. And I would get sick so many times during the day, but every single time we had a meeting and I sat down, because we met people while that we were there, and we had to get to know them before sharing the gospel with them, because if not, we could have been like temporarily, put in their jail, or taken passports and sent home. We didn't know exactly what would happen, but I guess it just depended on the who caught us. But every single time we sat down and had a meeting with people, I felt totally fine the entire time. Now, when our meeting ended, like, I was getting sick again, but yeah, it was cool to see God's hand show up. And then recently, when we walked through, so we had our youth retreat a couple weeks ago. So that started on a Friday. My father-in-law passed away on a Thursday.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So we had so many people praying over us, and we felt those prayers. And I told my husband, I was like, God has provided amazing people to help with this. They're using their gifts. If you need me at any point, step away. If you for emotional support or whatever you need, just let me know, and I will do that for you, because that is my priority over ministry. You know what I mean? Like, God's first, and then my husband.
Right.
And so, but I was able to be there like the entire time. He'd come in the evenings and spend time with us and get the kids for the night, and then bring them back in the morning. But when it ended, and I probably got 6 hours of sleep the entire weekend, just being with middle and high schoolers and sleeping in those cabins and all the things. But I had so much strength and energy the whole time. And then on the drive home, I was I almost fell asleep. But then we had a busy night. The next night we had someone had like an ordination process and everything. So we went there and we were like, oh, it's probably only going to take like 30 minutes. It was like 2.5 hours, which is fine. It was a wonderful thing. But we hadn't eaten dinner before, and so we were up till even real late that night, but still God gave us strength. He will give you what you need.
Yes, He
in
does.
that moment.
Yes, He will.
And then at the beginning of your story, when you accepted Christ at a young age at 9, I was very, very young when I accepted Christ as well. And a lot of that, my siblings taught me a lot as well.
See,
my parents.
say the same thing.
Yes, I was the baby
I saw
of
it
the
lived
4.
out, and you saw it lived out.
I did.
Before you.
Yeah. But even my daughter, even though she's the oldest, she's 4, and she's still she's told me before, I want to get baptized, and she loves God and knows God. I truly believe that.
Sharon started at 5.
Yeah.
She had an awesome Sunday school teacher that later died. Tragedy the devil, maybe he thinks that if he kills somebody off, we're going to just, stop.
He tries.
But she was 5, and she started then wanting to be baptized into Christ. I know what I'm doing. She's a lot like her daddy.
Yeah.
She's a lot like her daddy. And we put her off, and then it was when she was 6 that, or maybe it was the end of 5. Maybe she was actually 5, but she started talking one night, and so James and I both talked to her for a long time, and the parsonage was right at the church, and we took her across there, he and I, and we baptized her into Christ.
Yeah,
that
so
night.
It's never too young. God does such a work.
And God has used her. I've never once doubted it, and she's never once doubted it either, that to think she needs to do something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's been very real. It's been very genuine. and she has some amazing gifts,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how God touches hearts at
It
different
is.
times. And then I've seen people that really they were in their 20s before their heart was ready
Yeah,
for that.
absolutely.
But
Or
that
older
I've
even.
always told parents, because they're always afraid they're going to do it too young.
Oh.
And I said, you can't question
Yeah.
God's leading and the Holy Spirit working in their heart.
Yes, the
And
Holy
for
Spirit's
them to
timing.
want to know Jesus, you cannot question that.
For sure.
For sure, I mean, as parents, yes, you have to make sure, but you don't, you just don't do that.
Yes.
Because
I agree.
when all is said and done, even on this earth, it was James and Elsie. When we get to heaven, it'll be James and Elsie,
Yeah.
and it'll
Yeah.
be Sharon, it'll be you and your husband. We won't stand as a group because
Right.
we're part of a certain family or anything
Right.
else. It's our relationship with God,
Yes. For sure,
And,
I agree.
and I told parents, be careful that you are not telling them no when God is telling them yes. And then maybe they wait longer and the devil gets stronger, like when they're teens. I've seen that happen. And
Yeah.
I said, you just better be careful. Make sure, yes, they know what they're doing, but make sure it's their decision, not your decision.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Because
That's
it's
good
between
advice.
them and Almighty God,
Yeah,
not
that's good.
not you. You know.
Right. I hope that you guys enjoyed that episode with Elsie. I just love sitting down and talking with her and just hearing all of her life stories. Her life has been filled with some very tragic loss, and she has used that loss to be able to serve others and encourage others and not shy away from that part of her testimony. I just love how just all throughout her life she has found different ways to serve Christ and love others well. And obviously, if you couldn't tell, prayer is such an important thing to her. So if there's any way that either of us can be praying for you, reach out to one of us and let us know. So this was actually just part 1 of her testimony, and I'm really excited to share part 2 with you guys next week. I'm sure you guys will love it.